Hello, my name is Christina Wheeler, also known as student number 11574934. My task was to choose any of the episodes from week 3 and research in depth in week 4, either a segment or the whole program. I'll be discussing the influence of the media that it's had on the Christchurch attack, plus the political and media side of the rise of white supremacy from the Drum episode that aired on Monday, the 18th of March, 2019. This presentation will cover an overview of the Drum, the topics discussed on the episode of the Drum, a discussion of how the media influenced the Christchurch attack, and what part do politics and the media play in the rise of white supremacy. Also, an online document supporting or challenging the opinions expressed in this episode of the Drum. So, what is the Drum? The Drum is a program on the ABC which airs every weeknight at 6 p.m. to discuss daily news from an Australian perspective, covering the topics and debates with a mixture of panellists with their views. It is hosted by Australian journalists Ellen Fanning and Julia Baird. The program was first premiered in 2010. It most commonly has a panel of 5 to 6 people. On Monday's episode of The Drum, 18th of March 2019, this episode was hosted by Ellen Fanning, an Australian journalist currently on ABC. Ellen Fanning was joined by an all-Muslim panel. Sarah Salah, an Arab-Australian human rights advocate, activist and artist. Hannon Dover, accomplished clinical and forensic psychologist. Randa Abdel Fattah, Australian author, academic and human rights advocate. And Diana Syed, human rights lawyer and crisis response campaign coordinator at Amnesty International. The key points of discussion from the Drum episode, Monday, the 18th of March 2019, were the anger and sorrow resulting in the Christchurch attack in New Zealand. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern wants answers. What part do politics and the media play in the rise of white supremacy? And when does free speech become hate speech? So I really wanted to focus for a moment about the first part of the first segment in this episode. Ellen Fanning was explaining that the first bodies of the Christchurch massacre were released to their families overnight with the process of identification. New Zealand Prime Minister was praised for her compassion and leadership in the wake of tragic events. She was visiting families and Muslim communities and vowing to tighten New Zealand gun laws, which is very important. She states, when Australia found itself tragically in a similar position to what we found ourselves now, they took 12 days to make their decision. We have taken 72 hours. There is still some detail needed to be worked through. I want to do that, but still work as quickly as we can. The key points made by panellists regarding media and political influences on the Christchurch attack. Rhonda was not surprised by the Christchurch massacre. She quotes, Muslims have been killed on the war on terror. We have drones in countries. We have directly killed Muslims. An entire generation who have grown up desensitized to the fact that millions of Muslims have died in this war on terror. Sarah Seller acknowledged the importance of extending our solidarity. She quotes, I think it's important to acknowledge our Muslim brothers and sisters and cousins in New Zealand and communities right now around the world that are grieving this violence. Obviously, there is a lot of anger, but it is important to acknowledge that and extend our solidarity and say we definitely feel it here and can't imagine what the families are going through. We need to take a moment to acknowledge that. Lydia Shelley made a point of the anger and sorrow resonating within the community. Part of our religion teaches us that if one part of our community is suffering, we are linked through humanity, but certainly through our religion as well. When you don't talk about anger, she quotes, I'm very angry and oscillating between anger and sorrow, and the grief and anger is overwhelming. I don't think it's appropriate that the doors to our mosque are open to politicians. Hannah Dover spoke about the role of empathy. She quotes, people have expressed their love and support and empathy. She has raised 3 daughters post September 11. She quotes, they don't feel Australian or supported. often perpetuated by politicians and media, they don't realise that words matter and words do hurt. If empathy was successful in Australian society, then we wouldn't see what we see today. Diana Syed responded to the events of the Christchurch attack. It's been an emotional roller coaster, oscillating between heartbroken and angry, disappointed but not shocked that something like this can happen in the neighbouring country by an Australian. This is something that we've been calling out our government for years. With white supremacy being an unethical issue, Muslims will feel targeted. There is a huge problem with racism in this country and our sister country, and there needs to be a huge change in politics. I know that everybody will have a different opinion on racism in society, but I believe we need to respect the race of others and not use hate speech in front of audiences. The moment hate speech is used in front of audiences, we'll be placed in a society where people think it is okay. The online document which supports the opinions expressed on this episode of The Drum I chose was How the Christchurch Attack Was Made for Social Media. I found this document online, which CNN report on how the Christchurch attack was made for social media. It was a key statement made by CNN. The footage is grainy and has a video game aesthetic. Soon becomes terrifyingly obvious that what is being filmed is not a work of fiction. The video, which has not been verified by CNN, appears to show an unseen attacker opening fire on worshippers in a mosque, as if they were being targets in a game. This brings me back to my ethical statement. In a situation like this, Muslims are going to feel targeted, and it's not going to help the situation both countries have with racism. With a horrific massacre being recorded and live streamed on the internet, the entire attack seemed orchestrated for social media age. We all know that most people in society we live in use social media, but whether they use it correctly is another thing. The video was eventually taken off, but not before it was shared publicly, widespread across social media. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said after the shootings that many of those will have been directly affected were likely migrants or refugees. Reference CNN, Marsh J, Mulholland T, March 2019. Thanks for watching my video tutorial presentation for com221 assessment task number 1.